You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by Aborn and Company. I'm your host, Tim Dooner. Thank you for joining us today. I'm in studio with Michelle Cully. She's the CEO and founder of Xpressman Trucking, Harper's Bazaar Magazine's fabulous at every age for the 40s, and a published author of the autobiography, High Heels in the Laundry Room. Michelle, welcome to the studio. Thank you for coming in today, especially since it's like 78 degrees and it's the middle of October. I was pretty sure you were going to play hooky.
Nope, I would not miss this for the world. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah, well, and you're local too. I just found out we live in the same town.
The same town.
Yeah.
Yes, right down the street.
All right, so this is going to be a real friendly conversation.
Yes. It will be.
Well, we have a lot to talk about today. But since this is a logistics show, let's start on topic.
Yes.
As we veer from there. Michelle, what is Xpressman Trucking?
Sure. Xpressman Trucking and Courier is a same-day scheduled run delivery service. So we deliver anything from a small package to cartons to truck work throughout New England. We do have operations in Pittsburgh and California. We have drivers that do a lot of scheduled routes. We have on-demand drivers where a customer will call in and need a package delivered right away. So we do anything from bank work to truck work to auto parts deliveries. You name it, we deliver it.
It's such a male-dominated field.
Yes.
Logistics and trucking.
Yes.
What made you decide to even start? Because you are the founder and the CEO of the company. This is 100% on you.
100%
This is
on
your
me.
fault.
This is me. Yes, absolutely.
But what made you decide to even get into this business?
Well, honestly, I needed to do something with my life. I was in a relationship where I dated someone when I was younger, and he broke up with me. It was a very unhealthy relationship. He was abusive, and I worked for him. I lived with him. Everything about myself really relied on this person. And one day when he told me that I would never amount to anything without him, I decided that I needed to do something with my life. And only I was going to make that change. No one was going to do it for me. He had his own business, and I would see courier companies and trucking companies and, Airborne at the time coming in and out of his place of business. He had nothing to do with transportation, something completely different. And when I was lying on my sister's couch, really not liking myself and the direction that my life was going in, I decided that I needed to do something. So I decided to open up a courier company. Crazy, I know. And you know what? Not for nothing. At the time, well, still now, I had no sense of direction. So I had no idea how I was going to do this. But I just knew that I needed to do something. I knew that I needed to take control of my life. And this is how I started.
Well, that was my concern, too. Not only is it a beautiful day, but irony of ironies, your publicist warned me that you have a terrible sense of direction.
Yes, terrible.
And you live a town over from this studio.
Yes.
There's GPSs in every
Yes,
car
GPSs.
you got on your phone. But you're a courier, too.
Yes.
How did you get by back? Because you when did the business? 1993, right?
1993.
How old are you?
I am right now 49.
No, at the time.
At the time, I was 23.
Oh, wow.
I was
Super
23.
young.
So I was super, super young. And we did not have cell phones. We only had pagers and payphones, if anyone can remember those. That's listening. We did not have any MapQuest. We had the good old-fashioned yellow map books. And, you would open it up and try to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And then I would just close it and say, this is useless. I can't even figure this out. And so what I would do was I'd get a call from a customer, and I would then call the customer back, disguising my voice, asking for directions to the facility. And then that's how I'd write down the directions, and I'd follow my own handwriting. And I would say 9 out of 10 times I'd still get lost. But eventually I figured it out.
It reminded me when I was reading those chapters, because I'm a kid of the 80s, but I was in high school in the 90s, and we didn't have cell phones yet.
Right.
And you're talking about your pager blowing up.
Yes.
And I used to have a Motorola pager.
I home in on cool like a bird dog with my Motorola pager. It's how I stay connected with my very cool friends. So when my Motorola pager beeps or vibrates, I know that somewhere coolness is calling. Get a Motorola pager and know. Now, not knowing is not cool.
Motorola, what you never thought possible.
Because when you were in high school, that's kind of the thing teens did, because you had no way of communicating.
Right.
You have to wait at your house. So the pagers, they became this big, stopgap for about 5 years. But you had it, for professional reasons.
For professional reasons. So what I would do was, when I landed my first customer, I was the courier. I would make the deliveries myself. So what I would have to do was I would call forward my push button phone. I call it my Brady Bunch, phone. I would take my phone number and I would call forward it to my pager. And then a customer would call the phone, which would then go to the pager. I'd get the messages. I'd have to go find a payphone which, I mean, at the time there were lots of them out on the street corners, but I would find a payphone. I'd dig for change in my car to call the payphone to get the message off my pager and then call the customer on the payphone to get the delivery. And that's how it all started. I look back now and I'm like, how did I do that? But I did. And I really believe that if I ever stopped long and hard to think about what I was about to do, I would have never had the courage to do what I did. I just knew that I needed to do something, and this is what it was.
Wow. Because I think that we've all toyed with the thought of starting our own business. It's gone through everyone's head to some degree or another. But do you recall the day you decided to rip that dream into reality? Because you were dreaming about something that you didn't even really know that much about.
Yes, absolutely. When this boyfriend broke up with me and I was lying on my sister's couch, I got up from the couch after a week later, and I just couldn't believe that I had allowed my life, because I allowed it to happen. Even though he was abusive, I allowed it to happen because I could have left at any given time. I chose to stay because I didn't know how to leave. And that one particular day, after a week of lying on this couch, I got up and I went to his place of business to retrieve some of my things. And it was pretty sad because I had one little box to fill up after 6 years of being with him. And I was leaving and he was walking in. And as I mentioned earlier, he said to me, and he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, "So what are you going to do with your life?" And I said to him, "I don't know. I really don't know." And I'm crying, and he's just standing there looking confident and, and just looking down at me. And he said to me, "Again, you remember one thing, you will never amount to anything." And I said, okay. And I jumped in my car, and I half believed it, but I jumped in my car and I drove off, and I was driving down the street, and I had no idea really where I was headed. But I ended up driving to my parents' house, and I got out of the car, and they said to me, "Honey, what are you going to do? What can we do?" And I said, "Nothing. I have to do this myself. And I'm going to open up my own business. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I have a high school diploma. I don't have a college education. I have some clerical skills, but that's about it. But I'm going to open up my business, and I'm going to be right back. I need to use your laundry room as my office." And that's how it all started.
It's funny because there's always there's that picture on LinkedIn that everyone shares of the founder of Amazon sitting in a broom closet. But one of the things I adored about your book is you didn't shy away from any of that warts and all stuff. You really allowed the reader to come with you for about 2/3 of the book, just covering those first initial years, bad hires of employees, theft, uncertainty, doubt, all those crippling things that I think come into everyone's mind, all those defeating ideas that come into people's minds when they're thinking about starting a business.
Yes.
So many books, they'll start that, they'll be, here's Jeff in the broom closet, and then next chapter, it's Amazon in 2006 or Amazon in 2018.
Right. I didn't want to shy away from that. I had the truth, the raw truth, the ups, the downs, the ugly, the good, the bad. There was a lot of sacrifices made. I gave up my young adulthood for this business. I, slept, on my desk. I would go out and do deliveries at 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning. I did what I had to do because only I was going to make that happen. I had to, get this business up and running. I had to make all the sacrifices that needed to be made. And it wasn't pretty. There were times where I wanted to give up and give in, but I didn't. And that was a choice. At that point, I knew that I could do this. And I was determined to make something out of this because at the end of the day, owning your own business, yes, it's a very difficult decision to make. It's a very difficult process to go through, but it's yours and you own it. And you can be anything or anybody you want to be. You control your own destiny. And it's quite a ride.
I remember doing in freelance, you send out an invoice for $1,200 and that is such a high. And then there's a huge low because you go to the mailbox and there's a bill for $1,800. And that's really the hardest part. That's really when the doubt comes in because you're like, what am I doing?
Absolutely.
I'm losing money spending all my time to work for other people.
Right, exactly. And there were so many days like that, as I mentioned in the book, is that I would do a delivery and I would then call the customer and I would say, "Nathan, I was wondering if I could get paid." And he would say to me, "I'm so sorry, am I past due?" And I said, "No, I just did the delivery because I needed that money, that check to cash to get the money to put gas back in my car to do another delivery." And it seemed like that's all I was doing was putting gas in my car. But I knew the first, penny that I made, the first nickel that I made, that I had, as a little profit, I would save it and I would save it and I continued to save it. And that's how I continued to grow the company. And there were days exactly that I would sit there and write out checks, praying to God or whomever that there was going to be checks to be deposited the next day in the bank. It was it was such a game that I had to play, but I had to play it in order to continue on this path.
Amazing stuff. So once the business is up and running, let's do that thing I don't like when the books do. They skip ahead though. But what? So in an overview though,
yes.
Now at your age, you're not 23 anymore. It's not 1993. It's 2018.
2018.
People again, just from the perspective of starting a company or getting into logistics, what have been some of the joys and pratfalls, and what's some advice you can impart?
Oh, absolutely. The joys, like I said, owning your own business is just the most amazing gift you can give to yourself. Absolutely. Because again, you control the path in which you want your life to go in, and you're not working for someone else. This isn't to make someone else rich or someone else happier. It's for you and your family and yourself. And the joys are being able to control your own schedule, being as large as you want to be or small or as successful or not. I mean, it's all on you. The pitfalls, though, it's difficult. It's hard. There have been many, many days that I've cried and I've had self-doubt. Right when you just when you think that you have everything figured out, just when you think that you've landed the most amazing customers and things are running smooth, that next hour, that next 10 minutes or that next day, you get a call and you've lost a customer, whether it be they went out of business, they switched service, or, who knows what the reasons may be. But then you've lost it. And then you're trying to then get another piece of business, and it's not always the same, and it may be harder. It may not pay as much money, or it might be a little bit more difficult. So there's so many challenges. For me, especially, being in the transportation world, it's changed over the years drastically because of technology. I mean, a lot of industries have faced that, absolutely. But some of the products that we used to deliver, there was some good profit in it, whether it be bank work or, document work. And because of technology, things like that have gone away. So we've tried to diversify over the years and try to stay ahead of that. And that can be difficult. Just when you think you've nailed it, it's always something different.
We've touched on the book, and the book just came out, right?
It did.
High Heels in the Laundry Room.
Yes.
On Amazon. It's an autobiography.
Yes.
Fantastic book.
Thank you.
And a large portion of it does cover all this business stuff and this logistics stuff. There's a very emotional and serious undercurrent throughout the story. Your book deals with the abuse you'd faced in an abusive relationship. And I'll tell you, by chapter 11, I was kind of hoping this was a choose your own adventure book, because Jeff shows up again, and every time he showed up in a chapter, it just it makes you wince.
Yes.
I just felt so bad for you. You did. It's not an insult to your book. It's really a credit to it. But you really brought me into those scenes, and just sort of that really uncomfortable feeling you get when you see a couple fighting out
absolutely.
in public,
or
when you're a kid and someone's just abusive to you, or an adult.
Right. Absolutely. It was very difficult to write. I started writing this book actually 12 years ago. I was at a point in my life where I just really needed to tell my story, because I had kept it a secret for so long from my family and from my friends. One afternoon, the children were playing out in the backyard, and I was sitting at the house, and I'm a pretty humble person. I was looking around, and I said, you know what? I did this. I've gotten to this point. I did this. This is a girl that was tattered and torn and broken, who didn't believe in herself, who couldn't even look in the mirror. And here I am now, the owner of this multi-million-dollar company, and I did it by myself, without a partner, without a loan from the bank. I truly did it by myself, not even knowing really what I was doing. At that point, I was just winging it. So I said to myself, you know what? Everybody must write a book. I'm just going to write a book today. And I didn't even have a computer at my home at that time. I just moved into the house, and I grabbed my son's Darth Vader notebook, and I started to write my story, handwrite my story out in a Darth Vader notebook. Like my business, I really had no idea what I was doing. I never took a writing course. I'm not a writer.
I was going to say, this is like a trend with you.
Yes, it is. Exactly. That's what people say.
I don't know how to do this.
No, I have no idea. I'm just going to do it. So there was there was never a plan. Like I said, had I really thought about it, I would have never wrote that book. Had I really sat down to really think long and hard about the story that I was about to write, I would have never put it on paper. But I just wrote, and I just kept writing, and I kept writing. And from that, I had a friend of mine who was an English major who took it and then put it into sort of something that made sense. And then I sat with it for a very, very long time, and I didn't do anything with it because I wasn't ready to tell the story. And then what happened was, there was an article that was published about Xpressman and about myself in the Boston Globe. And from that, it got a tremendous amount of press, from being a commencement speaker to doing other podcasts, to being on panels, to doing speaking engagements, the Harper's Bazaar magazine. And then I was like, okay, it's time to take this story out, and it's time to take that Darth Vader notebook out and put it into a book. And I then at that point realized why I was writing the book. The story truly isn't about this person, Jeff. It's about me, and it's about my journey, and it's about what I went through to get where I am today. I really hope this book inspires others to believe in themselves and to believe that they can do anything that they want to do. They just have to find the courage within themselves, and to know that there's light and hope for every one of us. And it's up to you to just take that strength and to take that courage and just go for it. And that's really what I did.
I was a little concerned when Jill and you gave me the book, and your publicist did, because I knew that it was going to deal with some difficult chapters.
Yes.
And I was a little skeptical at first, because I was like, well, how is this going to even weave into the story about starting a logistics company? When I read the book, I understood it, because you can't tell the story of how you started the logistics company without telling this concurrent story, because these two timelines exist
at the same
on the
time.
same plane. Yeah.
Yes, it all happened at the same time. When I started the company, it was truly because I was, as you'll read in the story, I was rolled up in a blanket on the floor of my ex-boyfriend's apartment, and it took my sister, my mother, and my best friend and my aunt to pick me up and move me out. So there's this hopeless, helpless girl that couldn't even get up on her own 2 feet. So to see where that story started, and to see the journey that I went through to start this business, and to put herself wholeheartedly into it, and move freight around, and not knowing what she's doing in a male-dominated industry, and to figure it out, I always go back and say, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
It's funny you bring up some of those chapters, because one that really stuck out to me was in one of the Jeff chapters. You mentioned that your cat, Louise, was in the room. And as I'm reading your book, I looked over at my cat, and there you're staring at me with those crazy cat eyes. And sometimes
Yes.
you look over and you see you're like, how long have you been looking at me like that? And what are you thinking?
Yes.
But it was such a human moment in the book. Just taking solace or finding an island of comfort in your pet, or something that makes you happy while the world is crumbling around you, or the room is crumbling around you. It's really funny what we recall under stress.
Yes. You know, Louise, my cat, I wrote about that paragraph that I put in there about her because of the fact that I had no one to tell. So when this boyfriend was so abusive to me, emotionally, verbally, physically abusive, I kept it to myself. And a lot of people have asked me, why? Why didn't you tell anybody? Why didn't you talk about it? Why didn't you leave? I didn't know how to leave. I wasn't a prisoner. I could have left, but he had torn me apart so much emotionally and verbally that I didn't believe in myself, that I thought I was worthless and nothing. And he convinced me that nobody would ever want me. And I believed it for whatever reason. I was so young and naive and very insecure, apparently. And so I didn't know how to leave the situation. And I would go home at night after a very bad day or night being with him, and I would go into my room and shut the door, and I would grab my cat, and I would sit there and just love my cat and tell her all my deep, dark secrets. And I knew they were safe because I knew that she wouldn't tell anybody. And I come from, the thing that I have to stress is I come from the most amazing family. My mom and dad are 2 solid, wonderful parents that sacrificed everything for us children. And I'm one of 4, and we're all very close. And so it doesn't matter where you come from. It can happen to anyone. And I got myself in that situation, and I couldn't tell my parents, because if I told them what I was going through, then they would never allow me to be with him. And not being with him in my mind was worse than what I was going through. So I only had my cat to talk to.
The chapters about Jeff and the abuse are in there because it explains so much of your character, motivation, and your drive. And a lot of it was you wanted to be successful. You wanted to show someone up.
Yes.
And for better or worse, because you were with that person for so long, and you still had that passionate feeling. It helped propel you. They're not responsible for it, but it helped propel you, and it really gave you something to put blinders on and just run headlong.
And I'm glad you said that, because that is exactly so true, and to the point that this isn't about him. It was about me, and trying to prove to myself, not to him, that I was somebody, that I am smart, that I can do something. And I put those blinders on, and I went full force, making those deliveries, making those decisions, whether it was, when I decided to, well, I didn't decide. My parents finally said, you need to leave the laundry room. You have all these drivers now coming in and out, and my parents live in this very comfortable house, and I'd have people going in and out of their house, and I'm like, okay, I'll get my first office. And, I got my first office, and I remember making those decisions, and they, to me at that time, were massive, big decisions. The rent is now going to be $100 a month, and I'm not sure if I can afford that, and I have to buy the technology. But those were the steps that I needed to take to grow this business. And those were the, sacrifices, the decisions that I needed to make for myself to continue on this journey. And I knew that my company was going to be something. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew that I was going to make that happen. And in this transportation world, there were lots of obstacles, because being a male-dominated industry, and, and people maybe not necessarily taking me as seriously as they would someone else, because I was on the younger side. And, they would look at me, I'd be in meetings, or I'd be invited into, conferences or golf tournaments, and people would say to me, oh, are you someone's secretary? Are you someone's daughter, or does your dad own the company, or does your husband own the company? And I would sit there and say, no, Xpressman Trucking Courier is mine. It may be small, but it's mine. And so I just kept that in my head, and I was so determined to make this company what it is today.
Definitely not enough women in there. Although I had Sarah Barnes, she's a Canadian podcast, Sarah Bonds-Humphrey, on here, and she does a lot of women logistics podcasts.
Does she?
And I said, Sarah, you'd be proud of me, because I think my last 4 out of my last 5 guests have been women.
That's great.
But it hasn't been intentional, though.
Right.
And
well,
that's
it's more and more. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. When I first started, I probably was one of the only one. And if there was another woman at any of these conferences, it was someone's wife. And which is fine. It's just that, again, I was started in 1993. So back then it was many more men than there are today. And so I had to navigate myself through all of that. And, I don't even know how to golf, and I would be on the golf course because I knew that that was the place to make deals and to meet people. And, when others would say that to me, are you someone's secretary or, someone's daughter, I'd say, so confidently. And where I got that confidence was truly making the decision to start this business and knowing that it was only me that was going to make this happen. I would stand there and say, no, I own this company. And we may not be the largest, but we're certainly not going to be the smallest. And it was just reminding myself of that and reminding myself that we all go through the same challenges. It doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. We're all going to go through all these challenges. It's a matter on how you handle them.
The last part of the book that I really like too, I think that you really, really conveyed overcoming obstacles. I mean, there's so many hurdles that can come with starting a business. First, you have to prove yourself to everybody. And that can be a tough thing too, because a lot of people, when they have these ideas, they just want people to accept them and support them and be a part of it. But life's not like that. Even some of your closest friends think you're an idiot, or they're just mad you're not hanging out anymore.
Absolutely.
Or it's going to cost money, and your family is like, oh no, they're going to have to move back in the house, and I'm going to support them. There's so many scary things. And then there's so many things along the way where people can just say, no, I can't do it. I don't have a college degree, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have the connections. I like that your book says none of that matters. You just need to be willing to cry.
Yes.
And to have some ambition.
Absolutely. It's so true. In the earlier days when, you're in your 20s and your friends are doing the things that are so fun to do. And I couldn't do any of those. And I remember 2 of my best friends saying, oh, sell that stupid company. Come on, you have no life. You're not, you can't hang with us. You can't go on a cruise, or you can't go into Boston, or you can't do this or that. And I would say, yes, you're right. I know. But someday it's going to pay off. Right now, I wish I could do all those things, but I will at some point. And, they look back now and say, well, I guess you made the right decision. And we laugh about it. But, yes, it is absolutely scary at times. And they are tough decisions to be made. But again, it's the path that I wanted to put myself on. And there was the sacrifices that I wanted to make. And I wouldn't change them for the world. I remember, again, early on, being in my parents' house in their laundry room, and I would cry. I mean, I would go through a tough day, whether I got lost, whether I didn't have any money to get gas, whether, who knows, it was so many different reasons. And I would be crying, and my dad would tap me on the shoulder and he'd say to me, Mish, what's wrong? I'm like, Dad, I can't do this anymore. I work 90 hours a week. I have no life. I have nothing to show for it. And he'd say to me, Mish, knock it off. Wipe those tears, get out there. You've already started this. There's no turning back. And I'm like, you're right, Dad. And I would get up, I'd wipe those tears, I'd get back in that car, and I'd make that next delivery. And so it's truly strength within yourself to prove to yourself that you can't quit. One of the hardest things for me about, starting this business is truly not even making that first delivery. It was making that decision to do it. It's like, what the heck am I doing? But you know what? I know that I'm going to do it. It is a challenge. There's so many challenges. Every day I face challenges. Every day, whether it be an employee issue, whether it be a loss of a customer, whether it be a customer that's a very large customer and trying to figure out how we're going to get it done. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I know that's so cliche, but as long as you want it to happen, you can make it happen.
You're not in an easy field either. I used to do perishable entries, 24/7 perishable entries. I didn't own the company. Well, they put me on 3 weeks in a row. And I nearly cracked because at a certain point, you just start falling into this, you almost become inhuman. You become hard to relate to. You stop relating to other people. You become a little bit bitter because you're always at the job. And
yes, absolutely. The stress.
Yeah, I wanted a family too. I wasn't married yet at the time. It was impossible to date any. It just was not a great situation.
No, it's not. It's not. And when I was doing deliveries myself, I had landed this customer. It's so funny, and I know this is in the book as well. But I landed this customer that was really out of my reach, and I had no business getting this client. But I walked in that door. I got the client. Asked me how many drivers I had, and at the time I had nobody. It was just me, and I said I had 10 because 10 is my lucky number. I don't lie. I just like to stretch the truth a little bit back then because I had to.
Sure.
And I'll never forget, they were 24/7, and that's when I put an ad in the Patriot Ledger and got my first driver. And even though, so he would do the night deliveries and I would do the morning deliveries, and even though he'd be out there doing the night deliveries, I still couldn't sleep because I had to make sure that every single delivery got done on time and to where it was supposed to go, because one bad delivery I was going to lose that customer. And they always say you're only as good as your last delivery. So I was running on fumes at that point, literally running on fumes. And I would get angry and I would get bitter and I would get resentful. I had all of those different emotions. But again, I just, okay, that was yesterday. This is today. Let's move forward. That's how I approached it.
Well, it's tough to market. I'm a sole business proprietor who's practically insolvent, that is teetering on the edge, and I'm a car accident or an illness away from your package. Not kidding, you can't sell that, right?
Exactly.
You're just going to be like, you got to trust me.
You got to trust me. Exactly.
Even though I'm not telling you to, you got to
just stretching it. Trust me. Trust me that I'm just stretching it.
I need you so I can get there.
Exactly. Yeah. That is exactly
true. Be what you want to be, they say, right?
Yes. And again, it's funny, a couple of quick stories about, being in this industry and taking chances and maybe stretching it just a little bit. I actually got a call from a customer. I got a referral. And this customer called me and said to me, I was curious, do you do any work in the Pittsburgh area? And at the time I was like, if you could see me right now in person, I was like, yes, no, yes, I do. Yes, I do work in Pittsburgh. And they said, great, I have some business out in Pittsburgh that I'd like you to look at. So they sent me the RFP and I literally hung up the phone and ran to a map book so I could see where Pittsburgh was. And then I was like, okay. And my employee said to me, Michelle, how are you going to handle Pittsburgh? We are in Massachusetts. And I said, it's not how, it's when. And I'll let you know, because I had no idea at that point. So I got the RFP in, I bid on the work. I actually got the work and I was surprised when I got it. I was like, oh my gosh, I got this work. So I then, like any top executive does, I put an ad in the paper out in Pittsburgh. I got a plane ticket. I rented a car. I flew out there, got in my red rental car, and I interviewed my staff at a strip mall outside. And that's how I hired my staff. And that's how my Pittsburgh work started, because it was about taking that chance. Had I said no, I would have never gotten that work, which then that work led to California. And that same customer called and said, you are so successful and this is running so wonderfully in Pittsburgh. Do you do work in California? And I said, absolutely I do. And I basically did the same thing. And that's how my Pittsburgh work started. And that's how I became a national company. So it was about taking chances.
Yeah. So Russ was saying the same thing. I kind of did a similar bio show on him on how he started this company. And he was like, yeah, it's kind of this guy. I don't know anyone in California. I don't have any employees in California, but that's where the business is. So got to go national at some point.
Absolutely.
I guess California is the road there.
Well, whether it be California, whether it be Indiana, whether it be, it doesn't matter. Seattle, it could be anywhere. It's just about, taking that chance. It's about taking that risk and saying to yourself, you know what? Why can't I do it? Why can't I put pricing out there? Why can't I, put together a team and have someone manage it for me out there? Why not? Yeah. Why not you? Why not me? Why not Xpressman? And that's what I did. And it was, another example is when I was in my building, I was in this building and we outgrew it. And in order to move to another larger building, I needed another piece of business because I was, I could afford it, but, it was a little bit out of my means, a little bit stretched if I moved to this bigger building. And I'll never forget, this customer called me, same thing, I have a piece of business for you to quote on. We need to come see your facility. It's a big piece of business. And I'm looking around at my facility and we were busting out at the seams. We couldn't fit another piece of, we couldn't put a pen in that warehouse. You couldn't fit anything. And so I said, okay. So I went out, found a building that was for lease, that was much bigger. He flew in the next day and I called the realtor and I said to the realtor, I don't need you to come look at it with me again. Can you just leave the door open so I can come check it out? And he's like, sure, of course. So I met with my customer and I showed them the building and I told him I was moving into it the following weekend. And he's like, this is perfect. Okay. It was like, again, it was, it was a gamble, but I needed to do that to show him that I had bigger space so that I could get the work. So without the building, I didn't need the work. With the building, I needed the work. It's taking those chances.
So, Michelle, I deal with truckers all the time. I deal with air carriers, I deal with ocean carriers. Couriers, it's just, I drop something in a box, they come and they get it. But 2018, what's been going on in the world of couriers? You run a whole business behind it. So what don't we know about couriers that we should know? What's been going on?
Sure, absolutely. The courier world has changed significantly since I started because of the fact that before technology, it was easier work. There was a lot more on-demand work, which was picking up, delivering direct. And I would have customers that would call me. One customer would call me 35 times in one day. And that is completely dried up because there's no need for it. So you have to diversify and you have to think ahead of it and try to stay ahead of the curve and see where you're going to go with it. And for me, it was trying to get into an industry that you hope that technology can't take over, whether it be in-home pharmaceutical deliveries, whether it be auto part deliveries, something that you can actually hold and handle that can't, go through a computer. And so that has been very difficult for our industry, is trying to find other ways to grow your businesses because a lot of it's dried up. And the thing is for me, that's been a challenge, is there are much larger companies out there that can give discounted pricing that I couldn't necessarily give because my company's smaller and I have maybe a different overhead. And they are able to go out there and bid on this work for a much cheaper dollar. And these companies are getting that work, which then it's not, that doesn't help us out at all. But the courier world is forever changing. You're always trying to stay ahead of things. Just when you think, like I said earlier, you've nailed it, just when you think you know what you're doing, you really don't. The e-commerce is on fire right now. So many consumers are now buying online, which is fantastic for our world, which is incredible. So that is just blowing up. And you see more and more companies offering an online service. So that's a great trend right now that's going on. And I only see it getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I noticed that with your business too, when I was researching you guys, looking through the timeline, that it seems like at times when it made sense for technology to kind of intervene in your business, your company made the next steps to pick up white glove or other services that, again, just cannot be replaced via email or via simpler or digitized solutions.
Right, absolutely. And it gets harder. It definitely gets more difficult, but we did get into the white glove deliveries, where a customer will order a piece of furniture, will come to our warehouse. We will then deliver it to you, whether it's threshold, whether it's, white glove, where we take it apart and assemble it. We got into pharmaceutical deliveries where you go in and get your prescription filled at one of your pharmacy, and we'll go pick it up and deliver it to you, which has been a big part of our business. More and more you see, Target offers an online service where you could have makeup delivered to your house. Again, the consumer side of things is growing quickly. And in some ways you can't keep up with it because you can't recruit enough drivers, which is obviously the problem. But on the other side of it, it's great because more and more of these companies, whether it be the Best Buys, whether it be the Costco's, they want that service for their customers.
My last question on couriers before we get into the industry in general. What can I do to be a good customer to a courier?
Oh, that is such a great question. I love that. No, because you know what? Unfortunately, couriers at times are looked down upon, or we're like the bottom of the barrel. And that is not the case. The courier companies are the ones that get to the end customer. We're the ones that see our customer's customer. We're the ones that go in there and try to make them happy, try to make them feel good, get them their product on time, try to give them a great level of service. Sometimes, to give you an example, some of the pharmacy deliveries that we deliver to an older generation. We deliver to some people that don't really have anyone that visit them. We deliver to people that can't really move around, and they see our courier as it may be the only person they see that week, and it puts the biggest smile on their face. And knowing that we can do that for someone is just a great feeling. Customers, we have customers that are stressed out for whatever reason it may be. They see our drivers, and it's almost like we've saved them for that moment. You asked me the question, how can you be a good customer? Is knowing that we're only human and that we are going to make mistakes. Be patient with us, knowing that we're up against the time clock, knowing that we're up against traffic. I asked for patience, and I just asked for, to really compliment our drivers, to say that they are doing a good job, because unfortunately they never really get that.
I'm glad you mentioned drivers, because we're going to enter our lightning round.
Drivers.
We're going to cover the industry as quick as we can. So the first question, though, I have for you. So the big issue that we deal with a bunch, and logistics and whole as and supply chain has, is a truck driver shortage.
Yes.
It's a two-part question because you did mention drivers. So I'm curious, this year, are you having a lot of trouble when employment is way down? Do you have a lot of trouble finding drivers?
Exactly. Yes, I am. For my business, I'm having a difficult time recruiting drivers. On one hand, the economy is booming, which is great for all of us in business. But on the other hand, unemployment's so low. So these drivers have so many more opportunities to go elsewhere. So it's been very difficult. And, in overall driver compensation, we have to try to stay ahead of that. So it's been a challenge.
So you, a lot like the carriers, you're actually spending a lot of your time in overhead. Like I was just looking at a carrier survey, and for the first time, their overhead has gone over things like fuel and oil in 2018. They reported because of the huge bonuses they have to get out to lure, because construction is also giving out these bonuses, and other businesses that pay more to not, although to me, I'd rather sit in a truck than swing a hammer, but that's just me.
Absolutely. And I'm with you there. But no, you're absolutely right. If you go on to any sort of ad out there, you'll see Amazon's offering ridiculous signing bonuses. All I can say is for me personally is we try to take care of the drivers. We are really a nice company to work with. We just don't consider it a driver. We consider it a family. It's hard to recruit drivers right now. It's one of the most difficult things in my business currently today.
It's funny you mentioned Amazon because just recently, Amazon has started using just like regular Joes off the street. They have almost like an Uber of baggage delivery, but I hadn't heard about this yet. So I'm sitting in my house and I see a car pull over, just like a Toyota Camry, a late model Camry pull in front of my house. I'm not thinking anything, must be a neighbor or something. Go back to the kitchen, cutting up a tomato. I hear someone come into my back porch and I walk over there like holding a knife and the guy all of a sudden turned white as a ghost.
Really?
But he was an Amazon delivery guy. But they just use regular.
They must be.
So stretched.
Yes, it's so stretched. Well, they're obviously so busy because again, it goes back to the consumers.
Well, you've been following the news in 2018, and it really is the year that trade went mainstream.
Yes.
President Trump has us on the, like him or not, he has us on the cover of every newspaper, the lead on every nightly and morning news show. I've never heard trade talk. The only time I really can even recall trade talked about so much was when, I was a kid in social studies and NAFTA was coming up. And,
That's true.
And now they just changed it. Almost out of nowhere, it seemed. The deadline, you didn't think they'd hit it, but they did. We now have the USMCA, which is the United States and Mexico-Canada Agreement, which is like a snappy name, right? That sounds like a placeholder name.
It does. Exactly. Absolutely, it does.
It's that United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement.
You're like, yeah.
What should we call it? No, that's the name. Let's just run with it.
That is so true. Yes. So my thoughts on trade war, I personally haven't felt it in my business at this time. As I mentioned before, the economy is doing very well and I'm seeing a ton of opportunities in the industry. However, the trade wars continue or accelerate. We're going to all see it, and that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Question 3. Blockchain, TMS, supply chain digitization,
Yes.
AI, autonomous trucks. Tech is starting to get very interested in our field. What has you excited about the future of supply chain?
What gets me excited about future of supply chain? Well, it's actually very exciting. Over the past decade, we've seen consumers purchase via internet explode, and the trend is certainly not slowing down. And for us, it presents a tremendous opportunity for companies such as Xpressman to capitalize on the last mile segment of the supply chain. So it's very, very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Speaking of Amazon,
Yes.
time for a few plugs.
Oh,
If I want to buy your book,
Yes.
High Heels in the Laundry Room, how can I go about doing that? How can I go about getting in touch with you? And how can I also find Xpressman Trucking if I need a courier?
contact info. So you can search me at michellecully.com. So it's MICHELLECULLY.com. Or you can put in on Amazon or just on the internet, High Heels in the Laundry Room. You can buy the book through Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can go into the local bookstore at Barnes & Noble in Hingham or in Braintree. It's sold there. You can also, my company's Xpressman Trucking and Courier, so it's xpressman.com. Just Google us and we certainly will come up.
Are you at the HPL yet? The Hanover Public Library?
I hope to be there soon. I know. I actually, though, the book, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but now there's books on the T. So they put a book out and we will be on the T in November. So you borrow the book, you read it, and you put it back. So that'll be in November. And I actually will be doing a book signing at Barnes & Noble in Hingham, but I just don't have the date yet. So I'll have to get back to you on that. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and it just shows you sort of the path in which this is all headed to.
Wow.
So it's exciting.
Well, be sure to check her out.
Thank you.
I'm excited by it.
I'm excited.
I've already read the book, but I'm still excited. Are you doing an audiobook? Have you done one yet?
I haven't yet, but that's been talked about. So it's been discussed. So yes, not yet. I am going to be doing a book signing at Barnes & Noble. I don't have the date just yet, but I know it'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Do you have a dream reader? Like whose voice?
Dream reader.
Yeah, anyone famous that someone would know. Who would you have read your book?
You know, we're all famous in our own way. And I mean, it's for any reader. It truly is for any reader.
Oh, no. Who would you like to read your book? If you had an audiobook, who would you like to have read it? Who would be your dream reader?
If I had a dream reader, who would I want to read my book? Gosh, that's a loaded question. I don't know.
Kind of is. I know. I just thought of it right now. And I'm not sure I could even think of my own.
I honestly don't think I have anyone in particular.
Yeah.
Honestly, anyone that's inspired. I mean, sure, Oprah, would you read my book? Or Reese Witherspoon has a book club.
I think I would have Ben Mendelsohn read mine.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of his. There's a video of him on YouTube singing I Just Can't Wait to Be King in this really dark way. And
Really?
It's fantastic.
Oh, now I'm going to have to listen to that.
I'm gonna be a mighty king. So enemies, beware. I'm gonna be the main event. Like no king was before. I'm brushing up, I'm looking down, I'm working on my raw. No one's saying do this. No one's saying be there. No one's saying stop that. No one's saying see here. Free to run around all day. Free to do it my way. Oh, I just can't wait to be king. I just can't wait
I'll send you a link.
Please do. Absolutely. Yeah. You know what? There's nobody in particular. Anybody. I want everyone to read the book. How's that?
Cool.
I want everyone to read it.
One more time. The one, MichelleCully.com, right? That's the quickest way to if you just want info on Michelle Cully, MichelleCully.com. That is what? MICHELLE?
Yes. MICHELLECULLY.com.
Yeah.
MichelleCully.com.
That's right.
Yes. Or high heels in the laundry room.
Got a question for consulting logistics? Email me at tdooner@abornandco.com. That's TDOONER@abornandco.com. I'd be happy to learn something new with you. Looking to modernize and future-proof your supply chain? Contact a trusted advisor at Aborn & Company today for a complimentary consultation and learn how we have successfully negotiated over $5 billion in client freight expenses. Just visit www.abornandco.com. For this episode and all of our previous shows, head on over to abornandco.com/podcast or simply search for Consulting Logistics on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. Michelle, it's a beautiful day.
Thank
Go
you.
outside and have fun in it, but you're probably going back to work.
I'm going back to
right?
work, yes.
All right.
Of course I am. But thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. And thank you for having me and listening to my story and reading my book. And I really can't appreciate it. It's validating everything I've done. So thank you.
And best of luck on the book tour, too.
Thank you.
That's
Yes.
gonna be fun.
Thank you. It's going to be so fun.
That'll be a nice diversion from work. It'll get you out of the office.
It gets me out of the office. Thank you.
Well, for Michelle Cully, I'm Tim Dooner, saying take care and happy shipping.